So we're out, allegedly. The U.S. military out of Afghanistan 20 years after these terrorists attacked us, killed thousands of Americans. In 9/11, we have left Afghanistan to terrorists once again. Hello, everyone. I am Trish Regan. This is the Trish Regan Show, and I know a lot of people are going to be really excited. We're already seeing a lot of spinning going on from the White House. The Pentagon says we're out. The last of the U.S. planes have departed, yet there are still hundreds of Americans on the ground there in Afghanistan. We actually don't know how many are on the ground. You know why? Because they never, the White House never, the State Department, no one had an accurate assessment of how many people, how many Americans were there on the ground. In the first place, when they started this whole initiative, they said there were roughly 11,000. Well, it seems that somewhere just under 6,000 have been evacuated, which would leave, thousands still there. Nonetheless, the White House is saying they put the estimate more in the hundreds. I don't know. To me, you don't leave anybody, right? You don't leave anybody behind, but they have no choice now because you see this was so poorly planned out from the very beginning. We're now getting reports that Antony Blinken, head of the State Department, was actually, vacationing in the Hamptons when they were trying to plan all of this, and when Kabul initially fell. That would coincide, of course, with Joe Biden, the President of the United States, being at Camp David. Remember that? As Kabul was falling, and we're like, where's the President? Where's the President? Oh, he's at Camp David. He's, vacationing. He comes out and makes a little speech, and then he goes back to Camp David. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is a time, this is a moment when it's all hands on deck. And I realize we're dealing with COVID, and I realize it's summer, but nonetheless, we have 13 members of the military dead today because of very poor planning, if you ask me. And now the question is, now what? Right? So now you still have hundreds of Americans that are there, and you're leaving this area ripe for a whole new set of problems. When you think about the people involved here, all right, let's just be clear. These are not good people. I don't know how many times and ways, we can say that, but these are not good people, right? The Taliban allowed Al-Qaeda to exist. Al-Qaeda then took down the Twin Towers on 9/11 in 2001. Here we are coming up just days ahead of the 9/11 anniversary, and we're out of the area. So what? It can happen all over again? I mean, that's my fear, frankly. If it doesn't take much, if you can keep a lid on terror by having some support there, why wouldn't you have that support? And I'm not someone who wants to be meddling all around the world. You know that. You know that I want us to be thoughtful about our resources. And my big concern is that the nature of warfare is constantly changing, and we need to keep our edge, and we need to be thinking strategically about how we protect Americans, how we protect our grid, for example, how we protect ourselves from cyber threats, and how we protect from terror. But one of the ways that you protect from terror is to not allow these groups to be there in the first place. And instead, we've got the Haqqani network, a ruthless terror group running security for the Taliban. You've got ISIS-K, which is theoretically a sworn enemy of the Taliban, and yet when you've got a power vacuum such as you have now, you're leaving Afghanistan very vulnerable to the likes of ISIS-K, the Haqqani network, and other terrorists. Frankly, any kind of terrorist that wants to, go and have a place to hide out, this is a place that they can go because it is so lawless. And you think about the waste. Can we talk for a moment about the $85 billion, it's probably worth more than that, in technology and weapons, in helicopters left behind, not to mention biometric data on the people that helped us? I mean, this is really offensive. It should be offensive to every American taxpayer. After all, this is our money. This is our money that they just threw away, and these are our lives, our kids, that they abandoned. They abandoned. Because had this been better planned, I don't believe that we would have been in this situation we were in. And now we run the risk of being in even worse situations. And we have this administration to blame. Look, I would like him to do what I want to be very clear on this. I know everybody sees me as very political and very conservative, and yes, I'm conservative, economically speaking, very, very conservative, and I don't like where we're heading as a country. But let me just also say, as an American, I wish the president well. I want him to do well. I want our economy to do well. I want our military to do well. I want our troops to stay safe. I want our country to stay safe. So this is not a pile-on moment. I wish I didn't have to say these things. I wish that this had been better executed, better thought out. But these guys are the smartest in the room, right? They're the smartest in the room, so they get to go on vacation while all hell is breaking loose in Afghanistan, and they get to make bad decisions. And you know what? People pay the price for that. American soldiers have paid the price for that, and the American public is going to pay the price for that. And I'm going to get into that because we're going to talk about the economics of this. We're going to talk about oil prices as a result of all the geopolitical strife. Oh, by the way, I should of course mention you need to be subscribing to this podcast. If you haven't, please subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on video on Rumble or on YouTube or on Facebook, please make sure that you go and you download the full version of this podcast on Apple iTunes. I want you to do this so you get it every single day. The same with Spotify. If you're on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, I just want to make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure you do that. And the other thing I want to make sure that you do is that you go to trishintel.com. That's my website. Again, if you're watching this on video, you can see it at the bottom of the screen. And I want you to sign up for my newsletter, because it's important that we have a direct means of communication. You see what they're doing with social media right now. You see what they're doing, for example, with the New York Times, former New York Times reporter that became a science reporter, and well, they didn't like what he had to report on science as it pertained to the pandemic, etc. And so now he's off Twitter, banned for life. So this is why I urge you to make sure that you go and subscribe to my newsletter at trishintel.com. I would very much appreciate that. But again, this Afghanistan situation is really bad. And you know what? It's being reflected in his poll numbers. In fact, ABC News just came out with a new poll. And look, people have kind of had it. This will politically cost him. It absolutely will, as it should. 59% of Americans disapprove of Biden's handling of this Afghan crisis. Only 38% approve. You compare and contrast this with what people were thinking in July when 41% disapproved. So we've gone from 41% disapproval rating to 59% disapproving of the crisis in Afghanistan. And 84% of Americans believe U.S. troops should remain in Afghanistan until all Americans are evacuated. You see, that's just who we are. You know what? That should really give you some faith in who we are as Americans, because this doesn't need to be political. This is just really one of I think our values as Americans. We don't believe in leaving people behind. Not so much as one or two or three. And in this case, we have, reported well over 100. The number could be much, much larger. We don't know, right? Our State Department doesn't know, or if they do, they're not telling us. We're not clear how many people are there, but the point is that you do not leave Americans behind, and yet we have pulled up and we've pulled the rug out from under all those people that actually helped us with this war. We never provided them with the means to be able to do this on their own. We didn't give them enough warning. We had all the smart people in the room saying, "Oh, don't worry, you're not going to have to worry about it because it's going to take 3 months for it to fall." By the way, 3 months. What was your plan to get all the Americans out there? And what was your plan? Just to turn it over to the Taliban? You never actually wanted the Afghan army to be able to sustain itself? I mean, it's just tragic on so many levels. So none of this polling surprises me. I should also point out that it is not just Afghanistan that people are mad about. Crime, 50% are disapproving of Joe Biden's handling of crime. Only 46% approve. Gun violence, 52% disapprove, 44% approve. So look, I mean, no matter where you go in terms of these issues, of course, we also know Americans are very, very worried about inflation. All of these issues are problems for him. So politically, he's going to have challenges. I mentioned the economy. I mentioned inflation. I want to get to some important numbers that actually just came out yesterday. as they relate to home prices, because I think this is relevant for people that are looking to buy a home. This is relevant for people who have a home. We have such a tremendous sort of boom going on, or had, I should say, within the real estate market. Recent data points on pending home sales indicate that that may be softening. Down 1.8% month over month in the latest month. That would be for July, and that follows a decline in June. And so what you're seeing is people are starting to back away. Now, granted, those numbers are also significantly down, right, from what they were last year, in part just because everybody was moving out of cities, and I think people were hunkering down and they wanted to be in a place, in a home. And so you saw a lot of booming real estate sales at that time. But we're seeing evidence now that the economy really is softening. And so my concern for everybody is, if the inflation in consumer prices continues, but you see softening elsewhere, whether it be in real estate, although, you know, for new home buyers, I'm sure they're delighted to see some of these prices come down. But inflation in prices for things like food and energy, and then if you start to see not enough growth effectively in the overall economy to support that, then you're going to start to have some problems. And so I have been pounding the table, and I'm going to keep pounding it. I mean, almost every show, right? I keep talking about inflation, but it's because it really is a big concern of mine right now, and I think needs to be a concern really for everyone, which is why I look at many different things to invest in this environment. One of those things that you can consider investing in is actually you wouldn't have normally thought of this one, but insurance. I actually am a big believer in whole life insurance, and over time it can even outperform the market, and I've certainly seen evidence of that. Whole life insurance, however, is pretty expensive. I think life insurance in general is one of those things that you just really, really need. Whole life, yeah, I mean, there's some tax benefits there, and I think over time is very, very beneficial for helping to iron out some of the fluctuations that you would get in a portfolio tied to the market being up and down in any way that it always is. But that said, the other component of this is life insurance, not whole but term, because this is, before you even get started investing, you have to think about how you're going to plan for your family in the event that something happens, right? I mean, if you have loved ones that are dependent on you, it's important, and this kind of speaks to my sense of being an individual and taking responsibility, including for your loved ones. And so you need life insurance. So before you start saying, okay, I'm going to put all my money in the market and in real estate and all these things that I want to invest in, make sure that you have insurance to take care of your loved ones in the event something bad happens. I mean, it's a kind of a morbid thing to talk about, but it's one of those things that I just think is sort of the basis, right, of any good portfolio, because you need to make sure that you're providing. I've talked about a story, and you know, you can listen to it. I talk about it a lot, actually, on the podcast, about growing up and knowing a family whose father died, and the strife that the mother and the kids were put in as a result. And so this is why I tell people, go get your life insurance. This is why I do tell people, you want to make sure that you are getting the best quote, right? You want to make sure that you're getting you're getting the best possible opportunity for your family. And there are ways to do that. There are ways to do that, and I know that it's occasionally a little bit challenging. And so that's why I tell people, you want to go to a company called SelectQuote.com. Select Quote. I'm actually trying to put the banner up for you to see so that you can actually see it if you're watching on video right now. SelectQuote.com, because they shop, you save. In other words, it's all technology. Right? Technology that enables you to go in there and take a look at these things. And they compare and contrast all these different quotes from all over the place. And so I just recommend you go there, you check it out. Make sure before you really invest in anything else that you have yourself and your family covered. I mean, this is just so So, so, so critical. So there it is. You can see selectquote.com. That is the name of the company. And I do encourage you to check that out because it's so important, I think, that we make sure that we provide for our loved ones. But back to the real estate market, yeah, I have some concerns that maybe it's slowing down. I think it's still going to be relatively strong, and I do like it as an inflation hedge, but nonetheless, important to keep an eye on. The other thing that we are watching, of course, I hope you don't own real estate in, of all places, Louisiana, right? It's very sad there in Louisiana. We saw the governor come out yesterday morning. He was on the Today Show. He said, look, right now we've had one casualty. You can expect that that number is going to go up considerably, and I think you will expect to see that number go up considerably. Right now they have search and rescue operations going on. The president is promising help to Louisiana as well as to Mississippi, and I commend that. I think that that's the right thing. This is an example of where government really can come in and do the right thing. I just want to make sure that that money is well accounted for and well allocated. I told you the story of how 16 years ago I was there in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and I saw how badly that money was allocated. In other words, you had at times just trailers lined up for rows and rows and rows. And it was sad because I met families that they couldn't get access to a trailer. And so they were still homeless, living in homeless shelters. And that was such a travesty. And it showed you how badly government could really screw up. So I hope this time it's different. I do think that this is a moment where you need to help. And this is what government is there for. So it's good that President Biden is taking this on from a federal level. And I commend that. The other thing that I do want to mention as it relates to real estate, as we were just discussing, is of course the news we got recently that the Supreme Court is saying, you know what, it's unconstitutional what you're doing on this whole eviction moratorium thing. It can't happen, right? And the Supreme Court's absolutely right. Unfortunately, it was divided in a very partisan way when you saw that ruling. And this angers a lot of liberals. It angers a lot of Democrats. They're trying right now to find new ways to address this issue. Nancy Pelosi, however, doesn't want to pull everyone back in to try and address it, which is good, because if we actually had a Congress that came out and said, you know what, the eviction moratorium is just going to stay forever, then what happens to the landlords, right, that are actually trying to support these properties? And this is a real concern, because it's not just this issue, but kind of everything, right, that liberals are upset about when it comes to the Supreme Court. And this is one of the reasons why the president now has in place, a commission to study the Supreme Court, because he wants to reform the court. That's actually specifically what he's saying. We've got to reform the court. What does reform the court mean? Oh, it means pack the court. That's like a really fancy way of saying pack the court. And so they want to make sure that they get their favorable, radical, frankly, socialist-style policy, like the eviction moratorium. They want to get all that through. How do they do that? Oh, they need more judges. Well, I can't even begin to tell you how bad this is, how wrong this is, how against the founding fathers this is. I mean, it's just wrong in every way, shape, and form. And if you really want to make a comparison to who else has done things like this, well, I don't think we want to be Argentina, right? I don't think we want to be Venezuela. These are Banana Republic style places that do this kind of thing when it comes to packing the courts. That's what Argentina did. That's what Hugo Chavez did before Maduro took over, before Chavez died. He got his judges in, right? When they get their judges in, well, you can really just kiss goodbye any chance of, frankly, even winning an election again, right? That's a very, very slippery slope. And so this is why there's a terrific group called First Liberty Institute that's taking a stand. And I have put the information there again on the video. If you're watching the video version of this on Rumble or on YouTube or on Facebook, it is called supremecoup.com, supremecoup.com. I want you to go to supremecoup.com, sign the petition, tell them you support them in what they're doing, because America doesn't want to be a banana republic. America does not want to see our court stacked, or packed, I should say, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. So I wanted to leave you with that. And then I think I would just once again emphasize that this is a really critical time. This is an important time. We're getting out of Afghanistan. It has been 20 years. Joe Biden, I guess, gets to make the speech, sort of, that he wanted to make, but it has not come without costs, real costs. And it saddens me. It saddens me that we are, in an environment right now where we have to worry more, absolutely worry more about our children and our future as Americans, because who's to say there's not another 9/11 happening? We spent 20 years there, and frankly, we really have nothing to show for it. And so I don't think this is the way it should have gone down. While I supported getting out at some point, not like this. I mean, think about Syria. We still have over 900 troops in Syria, right? Because you still need to ensure that terror groups are not forming. You still need intelligence on the ground. And we still, by the way, have Americans on the ground. I can't get away from that. The idea that we're somehow abandoning our people there, it's just wrong. And I think the country knows this. I wish the president did. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to encourage you once again, make sure you go to trishintel.com. Make sure you subscribe to my newsletter right there. And we'll talk again tomorrow. There's a lot to talk about. Thanks so much for tuning in.